From a real-life Mowgli found living in the jungles of India to the rediscovery of the world's largest and most impressive temple complex, here are 10 incredible things found in the jungle. Number 10. Real-life Mowgli. Back in 1872, a young boy named Dina Sanichar was discovered by a group of hunters in the jungles of India. This young boy was around 6 years old, and he was discovered living with a pack of wolves. He was a real-life wolf boy, and many people even say that this kid was the original inspiration for Mowgli from the Jungle Book. The hunters followed the mysterious wolf boy and his pack of wild animals into their den. Then they sat outside waiting until they came back out. When they did, the hunters killed the wolves and took the boy with them. They brought him to an orphanage and gave him a human name, but it didn't make much difference because the boy was already wild. He communicated only by making animal noises, and he walked on all fours as if he were a wolf. It took some time, but he eventually learned to walk on 2 legs, even though he still preferred to be naked and absolutely hated wearing clothes. This is just one case of a feral child being raised by animals in India throughout the years. There have been 4 other feral wolf children reported in India, including a pair of girls rescued by a pack of wolves in the 1920s who howled at the moon and only ate raw meat. As for Dina, the original wolf boy, he did finally pick up some human habits, and one of them was smoking. Many people believe that it was this nasty human habit that resulted in the wolf boy getting tuberculosis in 1895 and passing away at only 29 years old. Number 9. Nazi Jungle Bunker. When we think about secret Nazi bunkers, we typically imagine them being either in Germany or somewhere in Europe. However, a recent discovery from Argentina shows that the dark Nazi history goes much farther across the globe. Believe it or not, Argentina has had ties to the Third Reich since the 1940s, when it became a hotspot for war criminals fleeing defeat from the Allies. Now, archaeologists in Argentina have discovered physical evidence of what appears to have been a secret hideout during World War II that had been built to shelter the defeated Nazi scum. The discovery was made by researchers from the University of Buenos Aires. They found artifacts directly linking the remains of 3 crumbling buildings in the Andean jungle to Nazi leaders. According to Smithsonian Magazine, inside these jungle hideouts, the researchers found German coins minted during the reign of the Nazis, fragments of German porcelain plates, and even a swastika etched into the concrete of the structure. While there are obviously no Nazis living in the jungle today, the research team reported that the site was somehow connected to a failed plot to help the leadership of the Nazi party take refuge in Argentina. They figured that the site would have been ideal for the Nazi leaders because of its remote location and proximity to Paraguay, as the site was only 10 minutes from the border. However, these structures were likely never used since the Nazi war criminals were able to find a safe haven in Argentina anyway. In fact, all that German blood has resulted in Argentina having one of the world's largest populations of German immigrants in the world, even today. And now for number 8, but first be sure to subscribe if you're new here and click the notification bell so you don't miss out on more videos like these. Number 8. Amazon Forest Rings. One of the most mysterious discoveries in the jungle has to be the earthen rings in the Amazon rainforest. Researchers have discovered a series of square and ring-shaped ditches scattered throughout the Bolivian Amazon and the Brazilian Amazon, which they believe were there even before the rainforest as we know it existed. This is an incredibly strange mystery, as the structures appear to be human-made. They could have been used for defense, for drainage, or for some kind of religious purposes. This new discovery is bringing up a ton of very important questions, like what exactly was going on in the Amazon with humans several thousand years before colonization. For the past few decades, archaeologists have agreed that the indigenous people of the Amazon never really affected the jungle that much. However, these new forest rings are suggesting that early Amazonians did indeed have a major impact on the land. You see, before the European invasion caused a massive collapse in the indigenous population, there were people living and operating in the Amazon just like in any other part of the globe, perhaps even millions of people. But 3,000 years ago, the Amazon jungle was not really a jungle. It would have looked more like the savannas of Africa. The climate was much drier. This new evidence is suggesting that people lived in the Amazon before it was a rainforest and may have dramatically altered the landscape, building structures and potentially farming in one way or another. Then, when the forest began to grow, most of the evidence of their effects on the landscape vanished. Number 7. Giant Congo Snake. The giant Congo snake has been a mystery for many years. It all started in 1959 when a colonel of the Belgian Air Force was operating in the Congo. It was in the Katanga region of the country when the colonel was returning from a mission inside his helicopter that he flew over what may have been the largest snake in existence. He even managed to snap a photograph of this thing, and the giant snake in question appears to be at least 50 feet long in the photo with a massive head no less than 3 feet long and 2 feet wide. Later on, this photograph was allegedly analysed and then verified to be real. However, the issue here is that it's basically impossible to tell how big the snake truly is in the photograph. It does look huge, but a blurry picture from 1959 could make the snake appear much larger than it really was. It could have only been 20 feet. The truth is that nobody really knows. Most experts claim that the giant snake was an oversized African rock python, while others say it was an unidentified species of snake or a descendant of some kind of prehistoric serpent that has managed to elude humans. It's one of those mysteries that is probably never going to be solved, but it's definitely one of the coolest jungle discoveries ever. Imagine running into a snake in the jungles of the Congo over 50 feet in length. You would need to change your pants pretty quickly. Number 6. Mayan ruins under Guatemala. Most people know by now that the ancient Maya Empire covered much of southern Mexico and pretty much all of Guatemala. And while new and interesting discoveries are being made all the time, perhaps the most amazing recent discovery was when researchers found over 60,000 hidden ruins in Guatemala previously unknown to modern society. The new research is suggesting the Maya civilization was far grander than we had thought, and the dense jungles of Guatemala were once home to millions of people. Researchers mapped roughly 810 square miles of land using cutting-edge technology and found the bones of a long-lost civilization that they now believe was likely just as sophisticated as ancient Greece or ancient China. This is basically a revelation in the archaeology world. In fact, an archaeologist from Ithaca College told the BBC that the Maya civilization could be 4 times greater in scale and population than previously imagined. By using sophisticated remote sensing technology that utilizes laser light to map dense samples of the surface of the Earth, shooting out millions of laser pulses every few seconds from an airplane or helicopter, researchers unveiled a revolutionary treasure map. We can now see in stunning 3D models a sweeping nation of pyramids, ruins, housing suburbs, and so much more. The only issue now is going into the jungle and physically investigating. Number 5. Angkor Wat. Angkor Wat does not get the attention it deserves. It's definitely not a recent discovery. Before the COVID-19 pandemic, millions of tourists flocked to the site of Angkor Wat every year to watch the sunrise over the jungle temple. But what a lot of people don't know about the largest religious monument in the world, whose name literally translates to Temple City in the Khmer language, is that it was actually lost for a very long time. This is without a doubt the largest temple complex in the world. It's simply mind-boggling to see the true vastness of what the ancient Khmer Empire accomplished. The first structure was originally built as a Hindu temple in the first part of the 12th century, and over the years it spread across 400 acres. Even though it was initially dedicated to the Hindu god Vishnu, Angkor Wat eventually became a Buddhist temple. And with most ancient empires, the Khmer Empire fell into ruins. The city was sacked by a rival tribe. The great empire that had ruled most of Southeast Asia for all those years was torn asunder, and the temple fell into disuse and disrepair and was swallowed by the jungle. It wasn't until the 1840s when a French explorer stumbled upon the enormous complex hidden in the sweltering jungle. Since then, Angkor Wat has been the pride of Cambodia. Number 4. The world's largest flower. Let's move away from giant monuments and take a look at the biggest flower in the world. It was spotted back in 2020 in the jungles of Indonesia. According to Indonesian conservationists, it is the biggest specimen ever of what has already been labelled one of the largest flowers on the planet. It's known as the giant Rafflesia tuan made, and it is a red flower with weird blister spots all over its massive petals. And guess what? It's approximately 3.6 feet in diameter. That is a world-shattering record, and it beats the previous record holder by just around 0.5 inches. This type of flower will only bloom for about 1 week before it begins to wither and rot. The flower actually gets its name from a British colonialist named Sir Stamford Raffles, who first spotted the flower in Indonesia in the early 19th century. The flower does grow in several other countries, including the Philippines, where another very large specimen was recorded. But this newest one is the biggest ever. In fact, the flower is known as a corpse flower, since it mimics the horrible stench of decaying meat to try and attract insects so it can eat them. That makes it a parasitic plant, and it exudes the same kind of noxious smell as another large flower in Indonesia that can grow to be about 12 feet in height and also eats insects. Oh yes, there are indeed carnivorous, insect-eating plants all throughout Southeast Asia. Number 3. Costa Rica spheres. The Costa Rica spheres have been a point of debate for quite some time. They were first discovered in the 1930s by workers for a fruit company who were clearing land inside the Diques Valley when they began to unearth enormous stone spheres that were almost perfectly round. The largest of the spheres is over 6 feet in diameter and weighs at least 16 tons. What's really incredible about the Costa Rica spheres is that they look to be man-made. It's very hard to see these spheres and not immediately think of giant stone snowballs. They have baffled scientists for a very long time. However, an archaeologist from the University of Kansas has come forward to say that the Costa Rica spheres were probably made by taking boulders and reducing them into spherical shapes by pecking and grinding them. This particular archaeologist claims that the spheres were likely crafted by an extinct civilization that existed in the area of Costa Rica somewhere between 700 CE and 1530 CE. Today, the spheres have all been taken by someone or some organization. There are even 6 of them sitting in the courtyard of the National Museum in San Jose. Number 2. Swamp Ghost World War II Bomber. In the swampy jungles of Papua New Guinea, a piece of history has been found. I'm talking about a bomber from World War II rotting away in a secluded swamp in one of the most primitive places in the world. There have been a lot of warbirds and other relics of the war found throughout the jungles of this prehistoric land, but perhaps none of them more famous than the Swamp Ghost. It's a B-17E flying fortress that ran out of fuel on a bombing mission in 1942 and was abandoned in a swamp roughly 8 miles from the northern coast of the country. And there, the plane sat undisturbed for just about 70 years. It wasn't until an American salvager showed up, took the plane apart, and then removed it that the warbird finally made its way home. It's now on display at the Pacific Aviation Museum in Pearl Harbor in Hawaii. Number 1. The Invisible Frog. In Bolivia, a rare species of frog has been spotted for the first time in 18 years. This is one of the rarest jungle creatures out there. It's a very unique species of frog that has translucent skin that makes it pretty much invisible. It's one out of 3 Bolivian frogs known as glass frogs, and it was spotted by conservationists in a national park just recently. These amphibians are pretty small, barely an inch long, and weighing less than a gram. They can be found throughout some other parts of Central and South America as well. But what makes them very cool is that their bellies are translucent to the point that you can see their internal organs. It is the freakiest thing to look at this frog and see its beating heart inside its body. The rediscovery of the Bolivian frog came as part of a mission to rescue certain reptiles and amphibians whose habitat is being threatened by a hydroelectric project. Because the project could potentially wipe out much of the indigenous wildlife in the area, it is very important that conservationists go in there and extract what species they can to try and keep them alive on the planet, even if it is in a cage. 3 of these frogs were taken to a special conservation centre where scientists are hoping to get them breeding. Some other famous frog residents at this centre include Romeo and Juliet, a pair of extremely rare Sawenkas water frogs which scientists are hoping will mate and create babies. Which of these discoveries is the most impressive? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. As always, thank you for watching. See you again soon for another exciting episode.